Hey, this is Jeff, author at mygolfmark7.com, and in this video I'm going to be doing a review of a comparison of boost onset using the stock diverter valve and then a DV spacer. So a couple of days ago I'd seen someone had commented about how the diverter valve spacer causes a boost leak, and then your boost pressure builds up more slowly with this part installed. And here's exactly what they had said. So I happen to be swapping some parts out on the car, and I just so happen to have a DV spacer. And so I thought, well, I've already basically done this type of a comparison a few years ago when I checked the Forge vent to atmosphere blow-off valve, but I hadn't done this with the DV spacer. It functions the same way in that it just redirects air outside of the compressor housing rather than inside of it. So I thought, oh, it's easy enough to swap this thing on, I'll do it, and then put this video together, and maybe this will help to educate a few more people on what this part does and also what it does not do. So one thing just to kind of keep in mind is that this is where the diverter valve sits, and this piston opens up so that air in there comes up and then goes through there. When you put this spacer on, so the idea with this is all this compressed air that's inside this section here. When you let off the throttle, you want to have a place for that excess pressure to go. This piston raises up, air shoots out here, and that reduces the pressure over there. And also by recirculating the air inside here, it helps to muffle the sound. So with the spacer, all you're doing is basically recreating the same spot, because that's why the stock diverter valve fits in there. But from this side, you can kind of see it blocks that. So now the air is not recirculating inside, it's venting outside. And effectively, that's the only thing that this part does. It just redirects where the air is going, from the inside to the outside. So for this, just real quick, setup on the car is racing lines intake, Shunk's IS-48 turbocharger. That's attached to the catless track slag downpipe, to a Bond mid pipe with resonator and an AWE exhaust. And most importantly, tucked back in there right now is the stock diverter valve without the spacer. And the general idea of this test is going to be that accelerate to build boost pressure, let off the throttle so the boost pressure starts to drop and the diverter valve opens, and then get back on the accelerator to allow the boost pressure to build, and do that a few times, and then come back. I'm going to swap the DV spacer on, and with the diverter valve spacer in place, repeat that process, and then we'll go ahead and we'll compare the data between the two sessions. Alright, on to the swap of that for this. Alright, so this guy, and he just sits in there like so. All right, in place. Now here's a look at the data. So what we've got here on the upper chart is the boost curve trace, along with engine speed and the position on the diverter valve. So as you see, do the boost event, let up on the accelerator, the diverter valve opens up, you see the boost pressure dropping off, and then down below here we see the position of the accelerator pedal goes to fully to the floor, the wastegate closes to 100%, and then you start to see the boost pressure building back up again. So this is a pretty similar time frame for events. You can see here the wastegate is closing pretty much at the same time. Boost is a little bit different. This is roughly a half a psi of difference, but pretty close. And so as we see, as we progress along, engine speed is very similar for both. The rate at which the boost pressure is building is very, very similar. And they each get to 25, just over 25 psi at around 4,400 RPM. And there's a little bit of a difference there again, maybe about 60 to 80 RPM difference, but extremely close. So one is with the DV spacer installed, one is with the stock diverter valve. No significant difference in the rate at which boost pressure builds. And some of the things that I found during this experiment that were kind of interesting, I've gone into on the blog, and I'll link to the post on the blog below, and gets into a little bit more some technical analysis of some other stuff that I was looking at. So for this test, I went out and put the car into third gear and went full throttle around 3,000 RPM, let the boost pressure build up, and at 4,000 RPM let off the accelerator and gave it a moment or two for the boost pressure to drop, and then punched the accelerator again all the way. And then I was looking at, in the analysis here, the time that it takes to go from 0 psi of boost up to 25. And went with 25 because that's where the wastegate starts to open after getting to 25. So I didn't want that to be slowing the time down any, so I went from 0 to 25 and looked at how long that took and compared doing that with the stock diverter valve and then stock diverter valve with the spacer to see if there was any difference in the amount of time it took for boost pressure to build up. And as talked about previously in this video, there was no meaningful difference between the two. To this point in time, I have never seen any evidence that would suggest that the DV spacer would cause boost pressure to build up more slowly. So I've got some evidence here which supports the fact that it doesn't. And just conceptually, there really is no reason, if you understand how airflow works and air moving from high pressure to low pressure areas, there really isn't any reason to believe that it's going to cause the turbocharger to spool up any faster. And if anything, discharging air at a couple hundred degrees into the compressor is probably not helping it to build up boost. But as this test showed, there really is no significant difference, at least under the conditions that this test was performed. All right, till next time, keep driving safe.